Should be any second. Hello, everyone. Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Helen, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Yes.
How are you doing?
You are now the subject of 4 Mumsnet threads.
I saw a friend of mine let me know, and I went and had a look. It's quite interesting, I think, because it seems to be not on the feminism board, but in the Am I Being Unreasonable board, which I think means that more people get to see it.
Yes, apparently it does. Apparently, I'll keep telling people where it is. But apparently, it's not really seen by. It's broken through the kind of feminism wall, and people who don't normally go to feminism chat are really getting involved in this conversation. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm just glad that Twitter are not making money from your content anymore, and that you have turned this Stanland question into one of the most important questions that could be asked at the moment. It is an absolute joy to know you, Helen. So,
that's good. I had a quick look on Twitter, and I saw the hashtag is going. It's still going, and it's going so much. It's being appropriated for other people to boost their tweets. I saw one earlier, which had Bible quotes, and it had hashtag God, hashtag Jesus, hashtag the Stanland question.
Wow. So God is trying to ride on your popularity.
That's great.
It's the funniest thing. I've actually taken a screenshot of it. It made me laugh so much.
It's going to pique so many people. It's going to pique so many people. So
and
thank you.
Sell so many products. The Stanland question. Tempur-Pedic.
Thank you to the activists who got her taken off. Another person who is exploding at the moment is Sarah Phillimore. Sarah Phillimore recently got chucked off Twitter. And since then has been subject to the most extraordinary smear campaign. We've all received a timeline of what's happened, and I'm going to ask Sarah if I can publish that on the site, because it's just amazing. But let's just go into it, and we'll get Sarah in and just ask her, just say hello first of all. Hi, Sarah, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing very well, thank you. I couldn't find my Fair Cop t-shirt though, but I've got my Fair Cop mug, bit of branding.
Cop t-shirt.
But I hope my t-shirt is appropriate with the right sentiment.
It says "Be nice."
You misspelled kind. Yeah. Sarah. Okay. It's hard to know where to start with this. Let's start with your Twitter suspension. You were recently suspended from Twitter. What's the story behind your suspension?
Well, I got 2 rapid-fire 12-hour suspensions for utterly innocuous tweets, which I've sent to you on the timeline, and I just deleted them because I thought, what is going on? But I kind of felt
the ones she was suspended for. Wait till you see them. Go ahead.
But I thought, this probably means that I'm about to be suspended for reals. So I went on to Tweet Delete, and I downloaded and archived all my Twitter data, because I know some people have been saying, oh, Sarah Phillimore deleted all her tweets because she's such a Nazi. Well, I've got them all on my computer, and any judge can see them. So I've got nothing to hide. I've got nothing to be ashamed of. I will say at the outset, I am not an anti-Semite. I am not a transphobe. But anyway, come back to that. So I got these quick 12-hour successions, and then on the 25th of January, I got booted off. Well, hopefully everybody's seen it. That's the one Joanna Cherry tweeted in disbelief, saying, what? Why has this woman been permanently suspended for this utterly innocuous? And all we could think of was that I used a male pronoun. So I thought, oh, well, maybe it's misgendering. But I thought, I appealed and I said, well, I'm really sorry. I would never intentionally misgender somebody. And I don't think I ever have, apart from Karen White. I think I was quite keen to correctly gender Karen White on occasion.
I think it's okay to misgender rapists.
Yeah. Well, that was my feeling.
Let's agree that that's okay.
But let's also say if your name is Frank, we can assume you're a guy.
Yeah. So I was really apologetic and said, look, if I did it, I was inadvertent. I'm really sorry. I can't see what I've done wrong. Can I come back, please? And on the 28th of January, I got a message saying, hello, we've reviewed your appeal. We've made a mistake. There's nothing wrong here. We apologize for any inconvenience caused, and your account is restored. only it wasn't.
Mm.
So I was emailing back and forth. And then I got another message yesterday, the same message sent twice at 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, saying your account, SV Phillimore, has been suspended for attempting to evade the rules against suspension. So I immediately
Guilt resisting arrest charge.
I said, look, this account was set up in 2011. You suspended it on January the 25th. How on earth can I have been using this account to do anything? So I appealed again, and I've got more emails. I actually emailed directly the heads of policy for Twitter in the UK, saying, I'm probably about to embark on legal action. Part of that legal action will be saying that I'm being defamed because people are saying I was kicked off Twitter. Quite a lot of people are saying now for Holocaust denial, which is fun. So I said, look, I can't get through to anybody on your automated service. I'm just not getting replies. Could you please just tell me? It's absolutely your right to chuck me off your platform if that's what you feel is the correct thing to do. But can you just confirm the reasons why? And unsurprisingly, I've heard nothing back. So we're in this. It's just kind of a perfect storm that you're caught in this automated system, which seems, frankly, insane. So as for all I know is I got told my account was going to be restored. It wasn't. And I'm now suspended again for evading a suspension when I was already suspended. So I don't know what's happening.
So let's look. I mean, the original tweets, I remember one, if you were misgendering someone, you were misgendering someone named Frank, right? That's right. I'm right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first thing. That's the tweet that Sarah was suspended for. Nothing. She's never received any reprimand from Twitter for anti-Semitism. Is that correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh yeah, just if people want to check this out, on the Faircop website, there's a link to the PDF of all the tweets that were reported to the police in December 2019. 3 of them had the word Jew or Jewish in them because the person reporting me had done a search of my tweets for trigger words like trans, police, and Jew. Now, none of those 3 tweets were ever reported back to me as being in breach of the terms of service, and people can go and have a look at that PDF. So hopefully you can't accuse me of rigging it or faking it. That's a document that was sent to me by the police. So never have I been told to delete a tweet on the basis it was anti-Semitic, which is unsurprising because I'm not anti-Semitic.
You don't even have to say that. I mean, the things that have been said about you by blue-ticked accounts are just so extraordinary, and they must just feel brave because people don't tend to bring actions because they're expensive and they're, and so on, and they're a pain in the arse, really. But you are going to seek legal redress from 2 of these people, is that right?
Well, that's the rub, isn't it? I mean, it is a terrifying prospect. I don't know if everyone presumably remembers the Monroe and Hopkins Twitter libel case. I think the damages were 30 grand. The costs were 360,000 and Katie Hopkins lost her house. So it's a terrifying prospect, but I don't see what else I can do. The defamation of me was so widespread and so grotesque. I mean, people were actually posting the screenshots where I said, I think my dog is Jewish, saying, she's comparing Jewish people to dogs. I'm like, but it's in front of you. Can you not read? I mean, clearly, so it was a very disturbing lesson to me. This is nothing to do with the truth. This is just to do with the lie that people want to believe. And it's not just me as an individual, although I'm very keen to clear my name. What this has done is shone a light on something really disturbing. 2 aspects of that. The first, obviously, is the pilloring of Joanna Cherry, which has ended up with her being in safe accommodation because her life and her physical safety has been threatened. And I think that's a distortion of the democratic process. She's a democratically elected politician, and these muppets online have been a baying mob of lies to try and bring her down. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is I don't flatter myself that I'm of any particular interest to these people, but I'm a useful, grim warning to any woman who attempts to speak up. I'm quite sure what I was supposed to do, as Google alert after Google alert kept coming in with my name, was to cry, was to delete all my social media accounts. Hey, maybe even kill myself. I do think for some of these people that would count as a win. But because I know I won't do that, I have a temperament that allows me to withstand that. I now think, if it doesn't sound too arsey, I have a moral obligation to do this, because what is happening is frightening. We are descending into madness. We've possibly already descended. We're in a world now where we cannot acknowledge reality, where acknowledging reality is a crime. And that's the third and final thing I think is really would make this defamation case worthwhile. Defamation is all about meaning. I don't think the courts are captured yet. I think the Tavistock case showed us that.
Yeah.
Courts will be very clear on trying to establish a meaning for transphobia and whether anything I say falls within it. Now, I know you all know that on no rational or reasonable definition of transphobia does anything I have ever said or ever will say fall into that definition, because I'm not irrationally frightened of trans people. I don't hate trans people. I don't discriminate against trans people. I stand up for the lawful segregation of the sexes, for the protection of the safety and dignity of women and girls. That is something protected by the Equality Act. And Mr. Justice Knowles has already said in Harry Miller's case that the things he said weren't even in the foothills of harassment. Discussing the Gender Recognition Act is protected political speech under Article 10. So I don't think a court is going to go for the Stonewall definition of transphobia, which is effectively this: if you dare argue against what we say about gender ideology, you are transphobic, and we will hound you. We will push you out of your jobs, your careers, your friendships. We will chase you all over the internet and lie about you, because we're all about love and inclusivity. Am I right?
Let me remind people at this day. I think it's a good point to remind people about this. 3 years ago, we asked Stonewall to agree to bring the toxicity of this debate down. A number of gay people, Johnny Best, who ran Queer Up North, wrote the letter. It was signed by people like actor James Dreyfus and myself and a great many gay and lesbian people. It is now at 11,000 plus signatures, okay? Stonewall said no to this request by the end of the day that it was posted. So Stonewall, for reasons known only to themselves, are deliberately painting a target on women's backs who dare to speak out against this ideology.
But Graham, we know the reason. The reason is because their ideology can't sustain even a few seconds of concentrated focus or challenge. They know that the only way they can prevail is to shut people up as viciously and as quickly as possible. Because I still, the vast majority of people still don't know what's going on. I'm really hoping, horrible though it's been for Joanna Cherry, and my heart goes out to her, I'm hoping this will have a positive impact. We've already seen with Helen the asking of a perfectly innocuous and sensible question, and she's removed from social media. Now 4 threads on Mumsnet is not shabby, is it? I hope this makes people wake up. And the only mystery to me is why they threw their hat in this ring, because they must have known there was an army of intelligent, articulate, left-leaning women like me, like Helen, thousands of others, and we would never stand for this. And it just took a few to be the icebreaker. I mean, I was talking to you about this, Graham, yesterday, and I've been thinking, what do I have to offer this fight? I'm not an eminent professor. I'm not a long-standing feminist campaigner or journalist, but I think I do have one quality, and that is that my rage overrides my common sense. And people who try to shut me up enrage me more than anything that I can say. So I have this gift that I'm able to remain resilient even in the face of this dreadful onslaught. I'm not going to cry or break down. That's my gift, my voice, and I will keep using it. Today I've spoken to Kieran Andrews of The Times, and he asked me, is this off or on the record, Sarah? And I said, it's all on, Kieran. Everything I say, you can quote, because the time for reticence is over. Now, we've got to seize the day. What's happened to Joanna Cherry was monstrous, but the fools did it in the public eye. So if I can get my case going, I think...
Let's talk a little bit about, because I think that one of the things that people may not be aware of is the kind of self-sustaining nature of these smears that have been used against you. We decided, like the last time we mentioned his name, he took the episode offline. But we're going to do it this time in the hope that if he does manage to take it offline, it'll become news. I also have an audio version being downloaded, so I'll put that out as well. But anyway, and he, well, tell us some of the things he said about you.
Tweeted at length that I compared Jewish people to dogs. I encouraged people to burn down synagogues. I said Jewish people were too stupid to leave Germany in 1930. And there was another one which I can't remember now. He did this while actually, quote, having the screenshots of what I've said, which of course said nothing of the sort. The burning of the synagogue tweet was, as I'm sure many will remember, I was in conversation with a trans rights activist who was telling me that SelfID was groovy. So I said, okay, well, look at it like this, as if somebody just said they were Jewish on their declaration alone, and they said, right, let me into this synagogue or I'd burn it down. Would that be okay? Because this is what's happening to women. Taken that tweet and said, I'm encouraging people to burn synagogues. If you or your lawyers are listening, you're a liar. And I'm coming for you. If my solicitors give me even the merest indication of a green light, you will have one more opportunity to retract those tweets and to publicly announce you've done it. Because also the Edinburgh Evening News, this was quite interesting, published all of this. They published tweets alongside with their own rather curious interpretation of what I'd said, which seemed to rest on Hitler invading Germany in 1930, but that's a side issue of strangeness. I contacted the Edinburgh News and I said, do you think you might want to take those down? And they did immediately. So that gives me some comfort. I also hope it gives journalists in Scotland perhaps a bit of trepidation. Comes knocking again with his quotes, because he's going to get them into trouble as well.
Another thing,
I'm looking at. I'm actually, I've got Twitter on because now I've got you know, a new account. I'm not blocked by anyone. And Jesus Christ, he's just going on and on and on. There's tweet after tweet after tweet. Actually, Sarah, that's actually quite frightening. It reminds me of somebody else.
Oh yeah. Oh look, what's happening to me now is I was telling Graham.
Just constant. Just the need to just go on and on and on. It's like kicking somebody again and again and again. It's the most incredible thing. And in the name of love and inclusion.
Yeah.
No, as I was saying to Graham yesterday, they're now.
This is the same person who smears the LGBT Alliance by saying things like many people consider them a hate group, and then including a link to his own tweet where he called them a hate group. This is a man who should not be taken seriously by the press, and certainly should not be taken seriously by the SNP. You know?
Well, what he's done is painted a target on my back. Because as I was saying to you, I've given up trying to count and archive the number of tweets that now say I was suspended from Twitter for being a Holocaust denier. This is the hare that he has set running. If somebody decides to take the law into their own hands and come round to my house and cause some trouble because of what he has said, then he is responsible for that. His lies have consequences.
Joanna Cherry is under protection.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky at the moment. I haven't had any significant threats other than, you're an anti-Semite. I haven't had anything, specific. And I was like, bring it on, because I am that angry. I would like you to come to my house.
Wait, no. It's all okay, because apparently he's tweeted, I can't state this strongly enough, regardless of someone's politics, it's never okay to threaten anyone. And no one should be threatened or made to feel unsafe. Now, that's quite obvious.
Yeah.
He's incredible, isn't he?
Did you just tweet that right now?
No, last night.
All right, okay. So that must have been after Joanna Cherry, Cherry.
Look, the chickens are coming home to roost. I mean, a woman will at some point be seriously hurt or killed. My fear is that nobody will give a shit. But I think some of these people might actually wake up to the real life consequences of their online witterings, and they might actually realize the harm and the damage they're doing. As Helen said, in the name of love, in the name of inclusivity, we will kill you to show how much we love you.
Well, the Spanish Inquisition did it all in the name of love too. You know.
Oh, but isn't it much more powerful? I'd far rather be punched and kicked by somebody spitting at me than somebody smiling at me and telling me they were doing it out of love. I know which is more terrifying, and it's possibly why I'm so angry.
Actually,
revolution, you know, all this was done out of love. You know,
there was that set of 4 tweets that that other bloke put together. One of mine, perfectly normal one, and then 3 violent ones from a chap. But he cut the header and the picture of the other 3 and just left mine. And it looked very much like I had written these. Yes, further down in a thread, in the small print, he said, Helen didn't write them. But that didn't matter to the people who was quote tweeting them. And I did see lots of people saying, this woman is vile, she should be left in the desert. Somebody was, and then there was talk of violence. And it was all because somebody had decided to try and smear me, but try and do it with plausible deniability, which was
this is very important. These are a group of people. There aren't that many of them. We're asking for an apology and a donation to Vancouver Rape Relief. That's what we'll be asking for. The thing that the press really needs to understand about all this, right, is that there are various levels of harassment and abuse. These are the ones who are there to show you what your life can be like if you don't shut up. Saying that you wants to burn down synagogues or whatever it was. I cannot wait. I cannot wait for you to get him into court. You know, and there's no way you lose. No way.
I think it's reasonably probable that the arrogant self-righteousness of the 2 main players in this, the politician woman whose name's just escaped, I think it very likely that they will refuse to delete or make any public apology. So if my solicitors give me anything more than, say, a 60% chance of winning, I'm doing this. It is terrifying because I may risk my house. I'm going to have to crowdfund. But for all the reasons that we've been discussing, this cannot be allowed to stand. This is actually threatening not just me individually, but the society that we live in, the rules that we've all taken for granted. I mean,
people ask me why I can't let this go, and people ask me why I take it so seriously. And it's because these beliefs that we're asked to go along with are deranging. They make me feel like I'm going mad. When I see Hamza saying, "Oh, we're going to put amendments in the hate crime bill to protect women's free speech," and then a few nights later, when Joanna Cherry is fired, changes his mind. You know what? We're not going to put those amendments in, and apologizes for any distress it caused to the men who rang up and complained.
Yeah,
and it's such a tiny. It is a tiny number of people doing
Don't they understand? There's a lot of people there's a lot of people with goodwill on this fight. A lot of people who've dropped their friendships with me, you know, and I still think that they're decent, good people. They're just being manipulated by a small core of extremely toxic, narcissistic nut jobs.
Dangerous bullies, and nobody wants to stand up to them because everyone's scared. So you've got like 3 bullies, 10,000 people standing on the sidelines seeing, well, there's some smoke over here, so there must be some kind of fire, and getting scared. This is why we have to extinguish those, these issues. We have to take these screaming bullies and hold them to account for what they're doing, because they are steering the dialogue. They're just wielding more power than they should ever have. They're just a couple of idiots on Twitter, and they're literally causing all this chaos because no one's speaking up to them. They've got to be stopped. Yeah.
Sorry, Helen?
You see the innocent smoothies thing yesterday?
Incredible.
Like a chap with 14 followers said to Innocent Smoothie, "Oh, look, you're following," and some woman she's transphobic, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're really sorry, we'll unfollow her." And then there was a fuss ensued, and today they doubled down, saying, "Oh, stuff about transphobia," and like Margaret Nelson, I think it is, she's like, "What?"
I know, yeah. Margaret Nelson, this the old lady who's worked all her life for feminist causes is somehow not in line with innocent's moral values, you know. But a guy who had 11 followers when he tweeted that, it's gone up to 14 because of his the guy's name is Leftist Rage, right? So you have a guy, he's called Leftist Rage, and he's cozying up to a corporation to get an old woman thrown off Twitter.
It reminds me of that tweet I found a couple of days before I was suspended. Somebody saying, "Oh, you know, she's escalated. It's so bad. You know, I'm worried that at some point we're going to have to call the police." And they were called "Soul of Hatred."
Right. That's right. These are guys who tweet all cops are bastards, and they're fucking reporting women because they said they misgendered. You know, or whatever. It's just extraordinary. But anyway, sorry. So let's move on. Sarah, this definition thing I think is great. I mean, I do hope. You know, I don't want you to go through the stress of a court case. Of course, I hope. Obviously very good in the short term. I think he should apologize, or not. You've only asked him to delete, but
I will. I don't want their bullshit, insincere apologies. I want a retraction, a public retraction, and I would walk away. So I'm going to make myself incredibly reasonable here. If they aren't going to do that, then I will go for everything that I can possibly get. And I've actually just been inspired by some of the comments I've just been reading. I think what I need to do is set up the GoFundMe now, to gauge what popular support I would have for this, and just see what the reaction is.
You'll have a lot, because donating to GoFundMe's is one of the few safe ways that women have to protest this shit. Yeah. You know, that is why you see Kira Bell GoFundMe go through the roof. You know, Fair Cops, whoever it happens to be, they always do great because it's one of the few ways women can actually say no without being threatened, harassed, and smeared the way you have. You know?
I think it'd be good to test the waters, because I do need some robust advice. I'm not going to risk my house on a 20% chance of victory. I mean, I think it's a slam dunk. I think the defamation is obvious, it's grotesque, and it's dangerous to me. And look at the wider consequences it's had. So yeah, I think actually I'm going to do that. So if everyone who's watching this can look out for that. I mean, also I don't have a Twitter presence anymore, but if people can amplify it, that would be useful for me to gauge how much support I'm going to get. I think I probably need at least 20 grand to get this started. So let's see if the support is out there.
Oh yeah, he said there were several suspensions. The tweets about the Holocaust caused a suspension in December.
No, it's a lie. It's an absolute lie. And what he doesn't seem to understand is truth is a defense, but you have to prove it. See, this is the sleight of hand these people have worked on us. They make these foul accusations. They don't have to prove anything. We are the ones who have to desperately prove our innocence or go away and cry and kill ourselves. This is not how the courts work. And I hope you've got some good legal advice. You are going to need to prove that I was suspended in December for Holocaust denial or whatever vicious lie you've been pumping out. You will not be able to do that. So think on your position pretty carefully, because everything I say, I can prove. I would not say that Twitter had restored my account if I didn't have the email from Twitter support. Now, maybe it's possible to fake these emails, but it's beyond my capacity. So I think it's about time we reclaimed our power. I'm fed up with this. People who just, the merest whiff of an allegation, and suddenly it's all on us to prove a negative or to disappear and cry. So let's get the burden of proof back where it belongs, on the accuser. So bring it on. All you people who are saying, I want to burn down synagogues, bring it on. You are going to need to prove that.
And Sarah, I suspect you're going to have your Twitter account restored if this is just a matter of an administrative fuck up.
Is it though? Is it though? I mean, I go and then Helen goes.
Someone
But
told me,
if they do restore it, then they're screwed, because then you're on Twitter, you can say clearly, I have not been suspended for these things.
Which is why I don't think I'm coming back. I don't.
I hope that you can somehow get Twitter into the case in terms of. I mean,
I've been clear to the head of policy. I will be asking the court to order you to disclose this information because I think it will be significant. Be saying, but she was suspended for denying the Holocaust.
But also, here's another thing. But Sarah, I mean, wider than that. You know, Helen is in exactly the same position as you are. You've both been taken off Twitter, as have I, and now people are able to say that I was taken off Twitter for hateful conduct and hateful this, and hateful that. We all have our tweets, right? I'm right in thinking you have yours as well, Helen. Yeah. So we all have our tweets. They're in an archive. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, it feels to me that a class action or something against Twitter is the way to go. If anyone is watching this who can sort that out, we have hundreds of feminists who've been thrown off Twitter simply for defending their rights. You know, I think it's absolutely a misogynistic platform. It is silencing a whole strain of feminist thought. And I don't know. I don't know if there's money to be made in such a case from a nice lawyer out there who wants to do it for us. But I think it would be good. Megan Murphy, of course, got rejected. But I think the more voices in this, the better. Really. Sorry, Helen. What were you going to say?
I had a look yesterday, and the Twitter leadership is I think it's 62% male, and the Twitter tech makeup is 73% male, which I think is not insignificant, and it's not unsignificant for what's happening here. Yeah. I think one of the big problems is that their rules are sort of reasonably clearly stated, except their examples aren't very good of what hate speech is. But you know, it is definitely not skewed towards women. Shall we say? You know, because when I read the email that they had sent to who got me suspended, well, you know, who was one of them. I mean, I imagine there was absolute mass reporting all of the time. However, you know, they came back with twice in that email they mentioned incitement to violence, which I think is really, I mean, that's pretty libelous, isn't it?
Never, ever. I mean, this is just insane. And we need to start screaming this loudly. I have followed you. You have been calm and measured and polite. And my God, I hope your question is burning them up. I hope they can't sleep at night because you had the foresight. Wish I'd bloody done it. I haven't got a snappy question now, so I'm a bit missed that bit. But I hope that is ashes.
Well, you kind of do, Sarah. You kind of do. Your question is, can you give me your definition of transphobia? Yeah. And have it make sense, have it stand up, because
that's true. That's a good one. Define transphobia for me.
Transphobia. Define trans woman. Define gender. Define woman. Yeah. You know, they can't define any of these things, and so in a courtroom, they're dust. You know, so I kind of am hoping you sort of do it, because it would be a brilliant case. It would be brilliant to see this written down.
I think it's essential, because without the courts exercising a break, I mean, look what happened with the children at the Tavistock. I mean, look what happened to you, Graham, on Newsnight. You were pilloried, you were mocked, you were laughed at for speaking the truth, and you were vindicated by the High Court. Right. The same thing has to happen now for this definition of transphobia that is being enforced upon us without our consent, without even our knowledge. The courts are not yet captured. I have to believe that, and I do believe that, but we'll see what the Court of Appeal does in the Bell case. So I think a definition of transphobia which wipes out this Stonewall nonsense would be one of the key things to getting us back on track and protecting our democracy and the rule of law. So I really, really do want to do this, but I really, really don't want to lose my house. But I'll be seeing my solicitors this week, and hopefully letters will go out next week. I'll start the GoFundMe tonight, and I'll just gauge what popular opinion is. I want to do this because I'm really angry, and my anger needs to go somewhere. And that's what these people don't realize. They judge us by their own low standards. Their anger makes them fractured and dysfunctional and vulnerable, whereas I think our anger makes us stronger, because we know we have rationality, a reason, and the law on our side. So bring it on. I hope that you will long live to regret what you did.
You're bringing it onto him rather than him bringing it onto you. But
Yeah.
So listen, let's widen it out a little bit. I mean, sorry, Helen, go ahead before.
I was just thinking about that rationality thing. I saw somebody, and I think it was either Labour or no, it was Greens. It was a chap from the Green Party, and saying, you know, you absolutely can. People can change sex. It's against party policy to say that people can't change sex. People can change sex. And I read this and I thought, is this a parody? Is this a sort of parody of, you know, how it's going? But it wasn't. But it was. But it was the talk of this is it goes against party policy, and it sounded. It was very reminiscent of Mao's China, you know, and party policy. Or of course, Big Brother. You know, this is party policy. This is what you have to say, and he was saying it, and he was saying it.
Someone said of the Greens, they're against giving drugs to animals, but they're pro giving drugs to kids.
That's right.
You know, that's a guy.
No hormones in your burger, but in your beautiful toddler, you just.
Yeah. Is he playing with a girl's toy? You know, funnily enough, I was talking to someone last night about this, and you know, one of the things that is, again, slightly deranging about being in this fight is how many huge news stories we keep seeing that don't get picked up by liberal newspapers. Like, for instance, the Tavistock, The Guardian, just tries to avoid talking about it when it can. And it's like, well, do you agree with these findings or not? Is it a scandal or is it not? You know, are you going to report on whether it's true or not? No, they just pretend it's not happening, you know. And another one that I always think of, which I was talking to a friend last night about this. It's just out there. All this stuff is out there, right? Pedophile short story writing boyfriend is now a moderator on all these sites on Reddit, including the main Joe Biden one.
That's so shocking.
These are influential people. Recently, Reddit got rid of all the gender critical groups. Coincidentally, and the boyfriend, you know, started moderating there.
Yeah,
you know?
two husbands.
Yeah, the two husbands who are 14 years older than him. You know, it's a shock. And basically, what I keep trying to say to people is, these people, they don't represent trans people. They just represent a certain kind of very dangerous person who has the controls of the ship.
Yeah.
You know, these people should not have the controls of should not have been on a board at Stonewall. You know, all these, you know, not be listened to by legitimate news outlets and political parties. If it's true that Nicola Sturgeon fired Joanna Cherry because of the words of Sturgeon should go.
Yeah, because of the words of an idiot on Twitter. Like, give me a break. Like, it's just not. This is just random people spouting nonsense. But we really need to define trans. Like you're saying, these people don't represent trans people either. People really need to look and say, if you're going to define trans as anyone who says that they are the opposite sex at any time for any reason, you can't pretend that fetish doesn't exist, because there are a ton of fetishists who are going to do that. You know, if you've ever looked at a pornographic website, cross-dressing is all over the place. It's very sexy for a lot of people. You can't just pretend that that's not ever going to happen. You can't just pretend that we're living in the Victorian era and everything's prim and proper on the surface and leave all the kink under the surface and then let everyone pretend that they're literally the opposite sex. You can't do that, you know?
Yeah. Oh boy. I you know, like I don't know. I feel like, anyway, listen, Sarah, should we let you go? Because if you need to get on, you said earlier, or are you okay to hang around with us and just shoot the breeze about other matters?
I've got another 10 minutes if you still want me to rage. I've still got plenty of rage left to give. I think I have an infinite amount of rage, and that is the gift I give to this community. I don't have a long-standing long-standing academic pedigree, but you may have my rage. It is all yours.
Yeah.
But on a serious level, I had to live 50 years to actually fear that I was going to lose what I took for granted, which was the safety and security of a healthy, functioning democracy. I am frightened we are losing that. I think that is the wider problem that's happening here. It's not just my bruised ego or some fight in the SNP. It's the fact that, as you say, Graham, everyone is ignoring all the very worrying stories. And I really, really hope that Kira Bell has broken through that with the Tavistock case, and the Court of Appeal will be this summer. And I really, really hope that Harry succeeds in March, although that's probably going to be my application against College of Policing will fall. But I want, this guidance has to be unlawful. All of these things, they're building an edifice of control and power. To what end? It is terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to stop it, and I think it will have to fall, but more people need to speak up. So you inspired me to be brave, Graham, and I'm hoping that my rage will inspire other people to speak. I mean, look, they've thrown everything they can at me. I'm a Holocaust denier on Twitter. I'm still here, and I'm hoping to be a bit richer by the end of the year because of it. So, bring it on, bring it on. You're going to have to kill me. That's the awful thing. And I think on some level they know this. The only way to shut us up will be to do something really terrible. And that's where we're going, isn't it?
They've done everything they can to me as well. And it just had the opposite effect, really, because the thing you just cannot do, under any circumstances, is bow to bullies. You cannot bow to bullies. And when I see celebrities bowing to bullies by calling Eddie Izzard she, it kind of drives me insane, because that is capitulating. That is
I would call Eddie Izzard she. I would call people she. But what I will not accept is this thing that then, by that simple act of calling someone she, you have erased sex.
Yes.
I will call people she, but I will say to them, I'm sorry, but there are going to remain spaces where you cannot enter, particularly if you've retained all of your male bodily attributes.
But let's remember, Eddie
the difference.
Enter those spaces. One of his coming out story was about being chased by some 13-year-old girls. Eddie, in that story, you're in the wrong. You shouldn't have been there.
We have to start a conversation about how we can all live in the world together. And that may mean that we have to start embracing the idea of third spaces. Eddie Izzard does not have the right to terrify teenage girls to validate him or herself. He doesn't.
Agreed.
And that's what we have to agree on.
And I think he deep down, if he really thinks about it, he might know that himself.
But he's empowered, and he's given permission to behave in this way by this very small group of self-righteous people.
He's made a short bet. He's made a short-term bet. People aren't going to go with it. No.
I mean, it's a perfect example because he's not vulnerable.
Yeah.
When you push back against like random people who are supporters of trans rights, who think they are, and you push back against them, when they say trans women are women, eventually they will concede that they're saying we're being nice to people who are vulnerable and who are in danger and who are in threat. And it's like Eddie Izzard is a perfect example of a rich and famous, powerful person, a rich, famous, straight white guy who is just doing this clearly not because they're vulnerable or in any danger. So the sort of charity argument clearly goes out the window. This is not. We're humoring a very privileged person by letting them go into girl mode. We're not offering charity to a vulnerable, gay person of color who's been sort of, or an extremely gender nonconforming butch lesbian who's experienced so much homophobia that she wants to pretend she's a man. That's not the same thing as a rich, famous, straight white guy who's like, I feel great when people pretend I'm a girl. That's not, I know,
and it's so, and it could be, couldn't it? It could be fine. It could be absolutely fine if he said, look, this is who I am, like he has done all his life. I'm gender non-conforming. I like to dress how I like, etc. But then it was suddenly, I'm a woman, and you're like, oh, it's so insulting.
Christina Harrison, who is actually trans, who is a transsexual in the sense that she, is and also an ally to women, because she did a speech at the Women's Place. And to be honest with you, I normally wouldn't use she because I don't want to hurt the feelings of the feminists who support me, because some of them have very hard lines on these, and I think Christina is one of those transsexual people who understands that, and understands that her rights have been adversely affected not by these women but by the trans rights movement, who are the worst bullies we've seen since the Stasi. They are unbelievable bullies, and everyone is bowing and scraping to them. The Hamza statement about apologizing for saying, for even suggesting they put the amendment to protect women in. I mean, my God, what is going on? What is going on? Why are these people being taken seriously? Stella O'Malley tells me an interesting thing. She said that just before, one of the things that brought the Stasi down is that suddenly, at the same time, everyone realized that everyone else didn't support the Stasi. And at the moment, people like Darrow Breen, people like Hamza, Sturgeon, these are all people, they're all under a spell. They're under a spell that's been created by social media and these awful people who are pulling certain harassment strings.
Yes, and what I find incredible is this, this idea that I can ask a question. People, but you ask it so much. I'm like, there's no limit. There's no limit. The woman is allowed to ask a question a month before Twitter gets rid of her. Or oh my God, you say penis all the time. Well, it doesn't matter. What's allowed?
Yeah, and also you would be able to stop asking it if they ever answered it.
Yes, I wrote a thing yesterday, sort of a blog entry, which I may or may not publish, about the question and the purpose of it and how it works well, and how Twitter, in suggesting that it's hate speech, has actually sort of conceded the fact that there is a problem with this particular scenario. Because if it was a scenario that was actually perfectly reasonable, i.e. male-born people in women's changing room, then there wouldn't be any need, there wouldn't be any thought of considering it as hate speech, because it would simply be a question which the answer is, well, yes, of course. But the fact that everyone knows that it isn't is Twitter itself conceding, well, there's a problem with this question. So, instead of saying, okay, well, let's address the problem, they'll address the problem of the question.
Yes,
and get rid of me. But anyway, I thought, well, I was just going to document a bit. I wrote a little Twitter bot to to pull tweets, sort of denigrating me. And I ran it a few times. And honestly, because I was just going to take screenshots and I was just going to document them in case it was ever necessary. But honestly, it was so fucking depressing. These tweets were so vile. No, these people were horrible. It was absolutely, it was disgusting. Some of the things that are said were just fucking disgusting, to be honest. And I thought, I'm not even reading them. I'm not documenting this. I'm not putting myself through that. They can just fuck off. So I stopped it. And I thought, well, you know what? I've seen it. People can look it up. But it was just so unpleasant. And I thought,
do that. Put the hell in
so glad that I am not like that. I am just not that person. I am not inclined to call people these names. I don't feel that my argument requires my denigrating people on the other side, calling them all sorts of disgusting things. There's no need. I can simply say, look, I personally believe that women should have the right to undress in a penis-free space, just when they're in a position of vulnerability. Sports, all of these other places of undress or sleep. That's it. It's really not very much to ask for.
No.
And I don't need to do it with threats, and I don't need to do it with harassment, and I certainly don't need to do it with vile name calling.
And I'll tell you another thing. Here's an interesting thing, that it's a test. It's not a test yet, because it's the unpopular religion. It's our old chum Christianity. But a Christian magazine was recently banned from Twitter, saying that it was impossible for men to become women. Now, here's my question: will they ban Muslim observant Muslims who say the same thing. Because observant Muslims do not believe this, will not believe this. And I've heard trans rights activists say, well, they must be educated.
One of the most curious things for me is why we haven't been hearing anything from the religious communities. I mean, there was a bit of a taste of it in the group of parents campaigning outside a school for the sex education. Now, that did sound really ugly. That sounded like lots of people getting really up close to the school and chanting. And that all kind of disappeared. And I find this really curious because so many religions have very strict prohibitions on the sexes mixing. And we're just not hearing anything, which I think is really curious.
What's interesting though is that a lot of
religions were all about Muslims until this. The left were all about the Muslim people until this. All about them.
Right.
And now they've just disappeared from their consideration.
Yeah. That's always the way, right? But a lot of religious conservatives do embrace trans ideology because it solves the problem of gender non-conforming people and it reinforces the patriarchy. Yes. One of the leading televangelists in the United States, Pat Robertson, wasn't it Pat Robertson who came out and endorsed pediatric transition? This is a fire and brimstone homophobe, hates the gays. Yeah. Openly said, I think we should be giving sex changes to children. This solves the problem, And then we had another religious conservative. She, one of these trans kids on a Netflix television show, I think it was the Babysitter's Club. They have a trans kid character, and the actor who plays this, their mother is a religious, evangelical religious conservative and an outspoken homophobe who was very clear. She said, I didn't want a gay kid. My little 2-year-old was exhibiting signs of being extremely girly and gender nonconforming. This was going to be bad. So I physically abused my child and smacked him until he realized he was a girl. She openly said this, Wow. And she's very open that this a Netflix star, this child, this little boy, who's now a girl, supposedly, is clearly unambiguously a victim of religious homophobia. And of course, Pakistan and Iran, two religious theocratic countries, they both it's a capital crime. You'll be executed for homosexuality.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
About the transsexuality, you're absolutely right. I think those patriarchal religions will embrace it because they hate gay people. What I'm thinking more is the whole self-ID thing. A man who doesn't make any modification to his body says, I'm a woman and I want... I mean, that's why I think I was using the synagogue example, because as far as I'm aware, the Jewish and the Muslim faiths prohibit the sexes mingling in religious services. So if a big beardy bloke was about to say, well, I self-identify as Jewish and a Jewish lady, where are we going to go? Are we going to defend the rights of the Jewish people or the Muslim people to have the tenets of their religious faith? There's a big storm will be coming, I think. This is just the beginning. But I am just curious as to why we haven't heard much from the religious communities. But I think Auntie's absolutely right on the sex change issue. A lot of them will sign up to it.
This is a kind of a side point, but the thing about those protests at the school was they did seem to tip over into homophobia from time to time. But I wonder if there's a similar thing to what's happened in America recently, where for the first time in years, acceptance of LGBT people has gone down among young people. There was a poll and they found this out, right? And the thing is, I don't think it really has gone down. I think the thing that's gone down, the acceptance, is fucking queer theory, which is at the heart of LGBT policies at the moment and being spread by Stonewall all over the country. People don't hate gay people. People hate the LGBTQA alphabet soup that they've created.
Yeah, well, the same thing happened.
I've got to go now, guys. I'm sorry. I've got to go. But thank you very much for having me. That was great. Before I go, just on that point, Graham, can everybody, if they haven't already, listen to Dave Chappelle on exactly that point about the LGBTQs in the car?
Oh, yeah, that's a great routine.
A fantastic skit. But thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry I've got to dash, but it was
excellent. Sarah, and give
me your money. Give me all your money.
Give them hell. Bye-bye.
Bye, Sarah.
Artie, sorry, what were you saying?
Oh yeah, just a quick one. You were like, they're saying, oh, suddenly the polls are showing support for LGBTQ has gone down. No, it's just because you added a bunch of letters and changed the definition.
Yes,
polls are showing that LGBTQ people are suddenly have lurched to the right politically in, you know, there's we do all these exit polls. It's like, no, it's just the last time you did the poll, it was lesbians and gays, and now it's lesbians, gays, and transgender. And as we've seen,
and everyone else.
Right out, the transgender women vote exactly along the lines of every single other straight white guy. They tend to be Trump supporting Republicans. You know, you don't magically become super left wing just because you know, suddenly identify as a woman. So the T is much more right wing than the LGB. You know, and when you lump the T in with the LGB, suddenly they're like, oh my God, everyone's become more right wing. No, you just took a bunch of Republicans and added them to the LGB. You know,
yeah, and you called not being mad right wing. You kind of reframed not being insane as being right wing. It's very, very odd. But also, you know, the SNP, the Greens, the Labour Party are all basically saying to women, sorry, women, but we're not really interested in any of your worries about this. We're going to go with the men on this one. And it's like, what do you expect? People are going to leave your parties, and they are going to. I mean, look, you know, people would, you know, I'm sure I share things, and people say, "Oh, Graham Linehan shared a right-wing site, or Graham Linehan shared Quillette, or whatever it happens to be." At least they're not trying to erase women. At least they are not harassing women. At least they're not lying about women, like Owen Jones. I hope someone takes out an action against Owen Jones. Rosie Duffield, I think, would have great cause to, you know, and a good chance of success. So you know,
just as
and
an
it's
aside,
healthy that we're. Oh, sorry. Go, yeah.
Sorry, with my my, you know, I may or may not have a Twitter account, but if I did have it, it turns out that I'm not blocked by anyone, and I can actually see tweets from Owen Jones, and I'm like, oh God, I've read that.
I know. Yeah. Well, you know, if he you know, they really, they've had 3 years of saying anything they want about anyone, and I think the Joanna Cherry thing is actually, I think it's great because you know, I don't think Joanna, it's going to be the last we hear from Joanna Cherry. She's one of the most skilled politicians of our generation, and Sturgeon's just shot herself completely in the foot with this. But the best thing about it is it's finally going to put people. We won't be quiet about that, you know.
It's really unusual being in this fight because the stakes are so high, and it really feels like a David versus Goliath thing. And it feels like you're battling a global conspiracy, and in a lot of ways you are. But then it's strange because, you know, most people, the general public, still, it's not on their radar yet. It's just like, it's this crazy making position to be in this fight, because on the one hand you're like, oh my God, I'm fighting this massive global conspiracy, and the stakes are so high, and everything is just so crazy what's going on. And on the other hand, you know, you talk to your friends who just have no idea what you're doing, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, how was your day, blah blah blah.
It's so true. It's so true.
I saw somebody saying, oh, well done for getting rid of that, you know, vile woman. It was like, it's a real David and Goliath thing you've achieved here. But the might of the one of the biggest tech companies in the world behind you, and then a woman asking a fucking question, you're like, yes, well done, boys.
That is brilliant.
It's going to be amazing, though, when this does break into the public. You know, like, they keep postponing the Olympics, which is a shame, because that is going to smash everything wide the hell open. Everyone watches the Olympics. These are unambiguous males. This has nothing to do with charity to vulnerable gays and lesbians. This has nothing to do with, you know, you're just going to see unambiguously male-bodied people cheating nakedly, and everyone's it's going to be outrage, you know. Bring on the Olympics. Let's cure this COVID.
I know. What a terrible reason to want the Olympics. Or no, what a terrible reason to get rid of COVID. Bloody hell.
I don't want actually all these women athletes to lose their medals. I really don't. But I want the inevitable should come so that we can break it open. You know, like I don't want Joanna Cherry to lose her position, but I'm glad that attention is being called to this issue. You know, we don't want all these women to be harmed, but we want to see this break open, you know? Yeah.
Well, we want to see it break open before more women are harmed.
Exactly.
Because it's no little thing, Twitter throwing women off their platform for.
No, could have broken a little bit earlier, and then I still have my account.
Yeah. but like these are people's support networks. These are their extended friendship groups, and Twitter is just suddenly taking them off out of the public square for mental reasons, for saying that women exist.
It's shocking how, I mean, it should be very rare to ban someone from a platform when you're trying to position the platform as the public square of the 21st century. And these are bans for life, right? They're saying we're tracking you for life and we're never letting you back in the public square. That should be a very, very last resort thing to do. But they're doing it like crazy because and it's always over this one thing, which is that they've instituted this policy that you have to pretend that sex isn't real. And anytime you ever acknowledge that sex is real, we got to throw you off the platform. And suddenly it turns out women tend to acknowledge that sex is real. So they just keep throwing women off the platform for life. You can't keep this up.
That's a really interesting point. It is for life, isn't it? That
That's
is quite an extreme reaction, isn't it? Look, you've asked this question too many times. You're literally never coming back. You're until you die, you never come back.
The public sphere forever.
Never come back and
never let you
your name here. It is quite the extraordinary thing when you put it that way. Like literally for life. It's not like you're off for a year. It's off forever.
And they're obsessively they're obsessively trying to track people to make sure they can't create separate accounts. Obviously it can be circumvented, but they do work very, very hard. They hustle. You hear people like years after they got there are people, because you can be on Twitter from the age of 12. There are 12-year-olds who told maybe told a racist joke, got kicked off, and then they're 23 years old. It's years and years later. Suddenly they get kicked off because Twitter's algorithms have detected that. I was 13. I told a racist joke because I was 13.
I saw a wonderful thing actually the other day where this young black woman basically just showed what an industry writing books by white people, usually white people, about being racist. There's like 20 of them, and it's she holds up one and says something like why I'm no longer talking about race, and the next book is called Why I'm Talking About Race. It's an industry of mediocre people who are
somebody said, what are they calling it? Somebody, I forget who, but somebody was calling it like they're manufacturing hate. It's an industry that they need to find hate. They need to invent hate, to seek it out so that they can be the people, the saviors. Stop it.
Well, as a member of that,
can I just say, when I was telling the story about the vile things that people are saying to me, I could see such a lot of support in the comments, and I want to thank you all so much. It means it's such a big deal. Thank you. I feel that's lovely.
No,
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, one of the other reasons I'm glad you've been banned from Twitter, Helen, is that now people have to come to this channel and watch this show to get their dose of you.
Get their fix.
Now we have a monopoly on Helen Stanlin. So
yes, you're all ours. Okay, listen. So I better end it because I have to do human normal stuff.
Take off the superhero mask and go back to content.
But listen, lovely to speak to you. I thought that was a great episode. I think Sarah is so inspiring, and I can't wait to see her get these rats between her teeth. My God, what a pile of awful people. But you are lovely people, and also are you in the comments. We love you all, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
See you later. Bye.